Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Thanks for being here. Last weekend I went to a Ducati demo weekend and rode the Diavel. Of course, there were plenty of other bikes I could have ridden along with that, but it turned out to be a bit of an eventful day, so the Diavel was the only one I rode at this point in time. Let's check it out. The Diavel V4 is a 4-cylinder bike with 1158 cc. It boasts 168 horsepower with 93 foot-pounds of torque, so it has tons of power. It has a 31-inch seat height and a 5-gallon tank, weighs about 520 pounds with a full tank of gas. Those are the specs on the bike. Let's get to the actual ride. The Ducati Diavel is labeled as a power cruiser or a muscle cruiser. When I think of a muscle cruiser, I think of the Triumph Rocket 3 or the Harley CVO Road Glide ST. I personally would call this a sport cruiser, considering its size, its styling, the RPM range that it's most comfortable in, and, well, the fact that it's a Ducati. I think sport cruiser suits this bike better than muscle cruiser. That's just my opinion. This bike really seemed to be most comfortable in the 2,000 to 6,000 RPM range. When I got much lower than that, it didn't have as much oomph. When I went over that, it started to vibrate. I especially noticed it on the left foot peg. I would get up to about 6,000 RPM or a little higher, and my left foot would start buzz vibrating like crazy, which is kind of a bummer because the peak horsepower on this thing is 10,750 RPM, and the peak torque comes in at 7,500 RPM. So I wasn't even getting to the peak power before the thing started to vibrate. Going below about 2,000 RPM while riding seemed to cause issues on the bike. I didn't have any issues with it when starting off from a stop, of course. I was able to get into that comfortable RPM range quickly and easily. But if I let it fall below 2,000 or 3,000 RPM while riding, it didn't seem happy. The bike actually stalled once during the ride. I have no idea if the RPMs were too low for the gear I was in, or if the bike had a different issue of some kind, I don't know, but it didn't seem happy at low RPMs. As far as riding position goes, it was fairly comfortable. I wouldn't want to ride it for more than an hour or so without a break. It's not like some other bikes I've ridden where I was glad to be done after a 20-minute ride. A little bit of forward lean on the handlebars, but certainly not the same level as a sport bike. The handling is okay. The bike feels a little long in the wheelbase for being a sport cruiser. I think with a 62.7-inch wheelbase. I tried taking a corner faster than I typically would, certainly faster than my Harley, and had to slow it down because it felt like the bike wasn't leaning any further, or it wasn't cornering as tightly as I expected it to. The counter steering got to a point where it felt like it was resisting me. Might have been the tires, I'm not sure. The bike itself is very agile and light. This bike is really fun to ride if you like sporty rides or aggressive rides but don't want the crotch rocket feel. It doesn't jump off the starting line at a crazy speed. It's got good acceleration, but it's not wholly out of control-y kind of levels. It does seem to do better once you get up to about 3,000 RPMs or so. I had a friend with me at this event. He rode the multi-strada on this ride, and he really noticed the low levels of torque on the low RPM on his bike as well. It's not as bad on the Diavel, but somewhat noticeable. He rides a Kawasaki Versys 1000 and decided he actually likes his bike better after riding than the much more expensive multi-strada. One thing I did notice, and this is probably due to my lack of experience riding performance bikes like the Ducatis, but the front brake seemed super sensitive. When I used the front brake to slow down, it felt like the wheel was grabbing and I would slow down much quicker than I expected. I ride an 800+ pound bike. This is a 500-pound bike with much more top-end power, so the front brakes definitely take a softer touch on this bike. This was probably my biggest challenge and my biggest hurdle with the bike. Despite those minor issues, riding the Diavel was a lot of fun. The logistics of a group demo ride really limited the experience. I wish the route had more curves and was at least twice as long as it was. A 5-mile, 10-minute ride isn't much of a demo. It gives you just a little taste of the bike, but not enough to really sink your teeth into it. So the question is, if money was no object, would I go out and buy a Ducati Diavel that cost almost $30,000? Most of the issues I had with the bike are solved by getting used to it and adjusting my riding style to match the bike. I do enjoy the thrill of acceleration and speed that these performance bikes have. I think maybe if the vibration on the foot pegs was resolved, I would consider it. But of course, that's all hypothetical since money is an issue and I can't afford the bike anyway. So that is it for this one, folks. Stay tuned. We're going to hopefully have a BMW demo weekend in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, next week, we're going to start talking about seat upgrade for my Street Glide. That has been an adventure in and of itself. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you all in the next one.